The Centauri Military Academy buzzed with the usual tension that came with hosting over 30 different alien species under one roof. Commander Zephyr 9, a towering Catherian with chitinous armor plating and 4 arms, watched from the observation deck as new recruits from across the galaxy attempted their first combat simulation. His compound eyes tracked each movement with predatory precision. Below, in the training arena, the newest batch of cadets struggled through basic tactical maneuvers. Most were performing adequately, the Draknari with their natural aggression, the Vorthon with their calculating precision, and the gel-like molluscoids flowing through obstacles with liquid grace. But there, in the corner, barely keeping up with the others, was the human. Sarah Chen, according to her file. 22 standard years old, from a backwater planet called Earth that had only recently been granted admission to the Galactic Defense Coalition. She was small, even by human standards, standing barely 5.5 feet tall with dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun. Her movements were clumsy compared to the other species, her reflexes seemingly slow, her physical strength clearly inferior. Zephyr 9's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his people. Humans were a curiosity in the galaxy, a species that had somehow achieved faster-than-light travel despite their obvious biological limitations. They had no natural armor, no enhanced strength, no telepathic abilities, and their lifespans were embarrassingly short. Most galactic scholars considered their inclusion in the coalition a charitable gesture rather than a strategic decision. The simulation alarm blared, indicating the end of the exercise. Most cadets had completed the course within acceptable parameters, but the human had finished dead last, her chest heaving with exhaustion while others barely seemed winded. "Pathetic," muttered Lieutenant Vex Prime, a hegemony officer standing beside Zephyr 9. The hegemony was the largest military force in the coalition, proud descendants of an ancient warrior culture that had conquered half the galaxy before agreeing to join the unified defense. "I don't understand why we waste resources on inferior species. That human couldn't fight her way out of a nursery pod." Zephyr 9 nodded in agreement, though something about the human's behavior during the simulation nagged at him. While other cadets had focused solely on completing the course as quickly as possible, he had noticed Chen stopping several times to help fallen teammates, even at the cost of her own performance. Such behavior was tactically unsound and emotionally driven, typical human weakness. As the cadets filed out of the arena for debriefing, Chen lagged behind, still catching her breath. The other recruits gave her a wide berth, some exchanging amused glances at the struggling human. In galactic military culture, weakness was not just discouraged, it was despised. That's when Corax Brutal made his move. Corax was a hegemony shock trooper, one of their elite guard units temporarily stationed at the academy as an instructor. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with metallic skin and cybernetic enhancements throughout his body, he was bred for war and augmented for maximum lethality. His presence alone could make seasoned soldiers nervous. He stepped directly into Chen's path as she headed for the exit, his massive frame casting a shadow over her small form. Several cadets stopped to watch, sensing confrontation. "So this is what passes for a soldier on Earth," Corax rumbled, his voice artificially amplified by vocal modulators. "I've seen dead Vorton larvae with more fight in them." Chen looked up at the massive alien, her brown eyes showing wariness but not fear. "Excuse me, sir. I need to get to debriefing." The politeness in her voice seemed to infuriate Corax further. In hegemony culture, respect was earned through strength, not granted through courtesy. "You will address me as Shock Trooper Corax Brutal Worm. And you will explain to me why the Coalition wastes time training weaklings who belong in agricultural colonies, not military installations." The arena had grown quiet now, with cadets and several instructors stopping to watch the confrontation. Among the galactic military, such challenges were common, a way of establishing hierarchy and weeding out the unfit. The human would either submit appropriately or be driven out, as was natural. Chen's jaw tightened slightly. With respect, Shock Trooper Korax Brutal, I'm here because I qualified for admission like everyone else. I'll prove my worth through my actions, not my words. A ripple of shocked whispers ran through the watching aliens. No cadet, especially not one from a newly admitted species, spoke to a hegemony shock trooper with such directness. It was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Korax's cybernetic eye flared red as his systems registered elevated aggression levels. Prove your worth? You finished last in every exercise today. You're slower than a gastropod slug, weaker than a juvenile centauri, and your tactical awareness is non-existent. The only thing you've proven is that humans have no business calling themselves warriors. Maybe not, Chen replied, her voice steady despite the obvious threat posed by the massive alien looming over her. But we're here anyway, and we're not going anywhere. That's when Korax struck her. It wasn't a full-force blow, that would have killed her instantly. But it was more than enough to send the small human sprawling across the training mat, her academy uniform torn and blood streaming from a cut on her cheek where his reinforced knuckles had made contact. The arena fell completely silent. While such discipline was not uncommon in military training, striking a cadet from another species without provocation was a serious breach of coalition protocols. But Korax was hegemony elite, and the human was from a weak, newly admitted world. Most expected the matter to be quietly forgotten. Chen pushed herself up slowly, wiping blood from her face with the back of her hand. She looked up at Korax with eyes that now held something different. Not fear, not submission, but a cold, calculating anger that seemed somehow ancient despite her youth. Is that how hegemony warriors prove their superiority? She asked quietly. By striking unarmed cadets half their size? Korax's laugh was like grinding metal. I prove my superiority by being superior, human. You exist only because my people allow it. Your entire species is here on sufferance. Chen stood slowly, her stance subtly shifting into something that looked almost casual, but felt somehow dangerous to the watching aliens. Her bleeding had already begun to slow. Humans healed remarkably quickly compared to most species, and her breathing was steady again. You know what the funny thing is? She said, her voice carrying clearly in the silent arena. You think you understand humans because you've read our files. Physical capabilities, technological development, military structure, all the quantifiable data. She took a small step forward, and several aliens unconsciously stepped back, though none could say exactly why. But you've missed the most important thing about my species, Chen continued. The thing that brought us from hiding in caves to walking among the stars in just a few thousand years. And what's that, worm? Korax sneered. Chen's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. We don't fight fair, and we never fight alone. Before anyone could react to her words, every electronic device in the academy began to emit a low harmonic tone. Emergency lights flickered on and off in a precise pattern. The training arena's holographic displays activated simultaneously, each one showing the same image. The blue and green world of Earth, rotating slowly against a field of stars. The harmonic tone cut off abruptly, replaced by a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The Academy's own communication system, but somehow different, carrying an authority that made even the most senior officers present stand at attention. This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Human Defense Fleet. 5 minutes ago, one of your instructors committed an act of violence against a human coalition cadet. We are displeased. The voice was calm, conversational even, but it carried an underlying current of threat that made the assembled aliens exchange nervous glances. You now have approximately 4 minutes and 30 seconds to resolve this situation to our satisfaction. We suggest you use this time wisely. The transmission ended, leaving the arena in stunned silence. Several instructors began frantically checking their communication equipment, trying to determine how an outside signal had penetrated the Academy's secure network so easily. Commander Zephyr 9's compound eyes fixed on Chen, who was still standing calmly in the center of the arena, blood drying on her cheek. "What have you done?" he demanded. Chen's smile widened slightly. "Me? I haven't done anything. But you see, Shock Trooper Korax Brutal made a small miscalculation when he decided to demonstrate hegemony superiority." She gestured to the viewing ports that lined the arena's upper levels, where the vast panorama of space was visible beyond the Academy's shields. "Every human cadet at this academy carries a biometric monitor. Standard safety protocol. When mine registered a significant impact, it automatically transmitted a distress signal." "A distress signal to whom?" Zephyr 9 asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. "To my ship," Chen replied casually. "Your ship?" "Cadets don't have ships." Chen's expression became almost pitying. "You still don't understand, do you? Humans don't send lone individuals to represent their species in hostile environments. We send advanced scouts." She pointed toward the viewing ports again, where something new had appeared against the star field, a dark shape that was steadily growing larger. "That's the UES Determination, a human dreadnought. My home. And right now, her captain is very, very unhappy with the way his daughter has been treated." The color drained from every alien face in the arena as they realized the implications of her words. A human warship, here, now, had somehow approached the Academy without being detected by their sensors. Their most advanced early warning systems had been completely bypassed. "Impossible," Korax snarled. "Our detection grid covers 3 full sectors. Nothing larger than a shuttle can approach without—" His words were cut off as the Academy's entire structure shuddered slightly. Not from impact, but from the gravitational distortion of something massive emerging from faster-than-light travel at close range. Emergency klaxons began blaring throughout the station. 2 minutes, Chen said helpfully, checking a chronometer on her wrist. "I'd start making decisions if I were you." A galactic soldier struck a human cadet. Part 2. The bridge of the Hegemony battlecruiser. Extinction's edge erupted in chaos as proximity alarms shrieked their warnings. Fleet Commander Thane Superior, a veteran of 47 major conflicts, watched in disbelief as his sensors struggled to process what they were detecting. "Report!" he barked, his 4 arms working frantically across multiple control interfaces. "Sir, we have a massive gravitational anomaly bearing 27 Mark IV, his tactical officer called out, panic evident in his artificially modulated voice. "Whatever it is, it's huge. Mass readings indicate—" "This can't be right, sir." "Give me numbers, Lieutenant." "Sir, preliminary scans suggest a vessel approximately 4 kilometers in length, displacing roughly 15 million tons." The bridge fell silent except for the persistent wailing of alarms. In the galaxy's military hierarchy, the largest hegemony dreadnoughts maxed out at 2 kilometers and 8 million tons. What the sensors were describing was beyond anything in their databases. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the anomaly. They're identifying themselves as the UES Determination, Human Defense Fleet." Thane Superior's mandibles clicked nervously. The humans were supposed to have only a handful of primitive vessels, barely capable of interstellar travel. Their inclusion in the coalition had been a formality, a gesture of goodwill toward a species that would likely contribute agricultural products and basic manufacturing at best. "Put them through," he commanded. The main view screen flickered, then displayed the image of a human male in his 50s, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform unlike anything in coalition records. Behind him, the bridge of his vessel hummed with activity, displays showing tactical information that made Thane Superior's blood run cold. "I am Admiral Marcus Webb, "Commanding the Human Defense Fleet Vessel Determination," the human said, his voice carrying the same calm authority that had echoed through the academy. "You have 30 seconds to explain why one of your officers assaulted my daughter." Thane Superior's tactical training kicked in, overriding his shock. "Admiral Webb, I am Fleet Commander Thane Superior of the Hegemony 3rd Battle Group. Your vessel has entered restricted space without authorization and—" 20 seconds, Webb interrupted, his tone unchanged. Behind the human admiral, Thane Superior could see other humans moving with practiced efficiency. Their equipment was unfamiliar but clearly advanced, their coordination suggesting years of experience working together. This was not the crew of a primitive exploration vessel. "Sir," his sensor operator whispered urgently, "I'm detecting weapon signatures. Energy readings are— Sir, I've never seen anything like this. Whatever they're carrying, it's beyond our classification scale." Webb's image leaned forward slightly. 10 seconds, Commander. I'm growing impatient." The implications crashed over Thane Superior like a tsunami. If the humans had this level of technology, this class of warship, what else were they hiding? How had galactic intelligence been so catastrophically wrong about human capabilities? "Admiral Webb," he said quickly, "there has clearly been a misunderstanding. If one of our personnel acted inappropriately, time's up." The transmission cut off, leaving Thane Superior staring at a blank screen. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his tactical officer screamed, "Sir! Energy spike from the human vessel! They're charging weapons! Evasive maneuvers! All ships, battle stations, return fire!" But as the Hegemony fleet began to respond, they discovered something that would haunt their military doctrine for generations to come. Human weapons didn't work like anything they understood. Instead of energy beams or projectile weapons, the Determination launched what appeared to be small, dark objects, barely visible against the star field. The Hegemony point defense systems tracked them easily, calculating intercept courses for what seemed like primitive missiles. Then the objects simply vanished. "Where did they go?" Thane Superior demanded. "Sir, they're just gone. Sensors show nothing but—" His words were cut off as the first Hegemony destroyer simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed in an explosion or torn apart by weapons fire, it was there one moment and gone the next, leaving only empty space where a 1,000,000-ton warship had been. "What happened to the Relentless?" Thane Superior roared. Before anyone could answer, 2 more ships vanished in the same impossible manner. No debris, no energy discharge, no trace they had ever existed. "Sir, detecting massive gravitational distortions throughout the fleet," the science officer called out. "It's like space itself is being folded. I don't understand the physics." On his command screen, Thane Superior watched in horror as ship after ship disappeared from his formation. The Hegemony's most advanced vessels, crewed by warriors who had conquered star systems, were being eliminated without even the chance to fight back. All ships, "Emergency jump to hyperspace! Full retreat!" But as his navigation officer attempted to engage their faster-than-light drive, nothing happened. The ship's engines cycled uselessly, generating no response. "Sir, hyperspace is locked down. Something is preventing dimensional transition." Through the bridge's viewing ports, Thane Superior could see the human dreadnought approaching, its dark hull seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. The vessel moved with impossible grace for something so massive, its trajectory suggesting weapon systems far more precise than anything in galactic arsenals. "Open a channel," he ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. Admiral Webb's face reappeared on the screen, his expression unchanged from their first conversation. "Yes, Commander." "Admiral Webb, we surrender. Please, call off your attack. We'll investigate the incident and—" "I'm not interested in your surrender," Webb replied calmly. "I'm interested in an apology to my daughter." The words hit Thane's superior like a physical blow. In 47 conflicts, he had negotiated with emperors, threatened entire civilizations, and commanded fleets that could crack planets. But this human was treating the destruction of his battle group as a minor inconvenience, a teaching moment for his child. "Of course, Admiral, whatever you require. But please, my ships, my crew, are perfectly safe," Webb finished. "We don't kill unless we have to, Commander. Your vessels are being held in dimensional suspension. Think of it as a very sophisticated timeout." Thane's superior's mind reeled. Dimensional suspension was theoretical physics, something galactic scientists had speculated about but never achieved. The humans were discussing it like basic technology. "How?" he whispered. Webb's expression softened slightly, almost sympathetically. "Commander, let me share something with you. When my species was young, we faced a choice. We could develop technology to conquer others, or technology to defend ourselves. We chose defense." The Admiral gestured to something off-screen, and the main display shifted to show the academy where this had all begun. "Every human you've met, every vessel we've built, every advancement we've made has been focused on one goal: ensuring our people can live safely among the stars." The view zoomed in on the training arena, where Shock Trooper Corax Brutal was now standing at attention before Commander Zephyr 9, who was clearly struggling to process the situation. "But here's what you need to understand," Webb continued. "When someone threatens one of us, they threaten all of us. When someone strikes my daughter, they've declared war on our entire species." Thane's superior watched as human vessels began appearing throughout the system. Not just the massive dreadnought, but smaller ships emerging from what seemed like empty space. Dozens of them, then hundreds, all bearing the same impossible technology signatures. "This is your entire fleet?" he asked weakly. Webb's smile was sharp enough to cut starships. "Commander, this is one patrol group. We have over 300 systems under our protection, and this is what we consider a light response to a minor incident." The implications staggered Thane's superior. If this was a light response from one patrol group, what did human military doctrine look like when they were actually threatened? How had a species they'd dismissed as primitive built an empire that could dwarf the hegemony itself? "But your planet, your technology levels, our intelligence reports showed you exactly what we wanted you to see," Webb confirmed. "Commander, humanity learned long ago that the best way to avoid galactic conflicts is to appear too weak to be worth conquering and too harmless to be worth exterminating. It's kept us safe for nearly 2 centuries. The human admiral leaned back in his chair, his demeanor becoming almost conversational. "We've been members of the coalition for exactly 18 months. In that time, we've quietly placed defensive installations in over 50 systems, established rapid response fleets in 12 sectors, and built enough manufacturing capacity to outfit 1,000 worlds." He paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. "All while maintaining the fiction that we're a backward agricultural world with delusions of military grandeur." Thane's superior felt his worldview crumbling around him. Everything the hegemony believed about galactic power structures, about military dominance, about their own superiority, all of it was based on incomplete information. "Why?" he asked. "Why reveal yourselves now?" Webb's expression hardened again. "Because someone hurt my daughter, Commander, and because it's time the galaxy learned that humans protect their own." The transmission shifted to show the Academy's training arena, where Sarah Chen was now standing before the assembled cadets and instructors, her cheek bandaged, but her bearing proud and unbroken. "You see, Commander, every human child learns the same lesson from the moment they can understand words. We are never alone. No matter how far from home we travel, no matter how outnumbered we might seem, our family is always watching." On the screen, Chen was speaking to her fellow cadets, though the audio was too distant to make out her words. but her gestures were clear. She was introducing them to concepts they had never considered, explaining how human military doctrine worked when they didn't have to pretend to be weak. "Your daughter is military?" Thane Superior asked. "Every human is military, Commander. We don't have civilians in the traditional sense. We have citizens who happen to be farmers, engineers, teachers, or artists. But when threatened, we're all soldiers." The view pulled back to show the Academy's exterior, where more human vessels were arriving in precise formation. Each ship was different from the others, suggesting a manufacturing capability that could customize vessels for specific roles rather than relying on standardized designs. "The cadet corps you've been training with includes representatives from 97 different worlds," Webb continued. "Sarah is one of 1,200 humans currently enrolled in coalition military academies. Each one is there to learn about galactic military structures, to understand how other species think and fight." Thane Superior's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Intelligence gathering." "Education," Webb corrected. "We believe in understanding our neighbors, Commander. It makes us better allies and less likely to have misunderstandings that lead to incidents." The human admiral stood, and Thane Superior could see the bridge crew behind him preparing for departure. Whatever demonstration they had planned was apparently complete. "Now then, Commander, I believe you have an apology to deliver, and I suggest you make it a good one, because my daughter has quite a few friends watching." A galactic soldier struck a human cadet. Part 3. The Centauri Military Academy's main conference hall had never hosted a gathering quite like this one. Representatives from 12 different species sat around the massive circular table, their various forms of military dress creating a rainbow of colors and textures. But all eyes were focused on the small human sitting calmly in the center chair, Sarah Chen, whose bruised cheek had somehow shifted the balance of galactic power in less than an hour. Admiral Webb stood behind his daughter, his presence a constant reminder of the fleet-holding position just beyond the Academy's shields. Commander Zephyr 9 fidgeted nervously at the table's head, his compound eyes darting between the human family and the other senior officers who had been hastily summoned for this unprecedented gathering. "Let me make sure I understand the situation correctly," said Chancellor Vex Prime, the highest-ranking hegemony official at the Academy. Her metallic skin had taken on a distinctly pale hue since learning of the fleet's arrival. "Shock Trooper Corax Brutal struck a coalition cadet during what he believed was appropriate disciplinary action. This action triggered an automatic response from how many human vessels exactly?" Admiral Webb consulted a tablet with casual precision. "Currently, 312 ships are holding position in this system. Another 800 are en route from various patrol assignments." The silence that followed was broken only by the nervous clicking of Centauri breathing apparatus and the low hum of Draknari translator devices struggling to process the implications. "Over 1,000 ships," whispered Captain Molth, a seasoned Vorthan officer whose purple skin had shifted to an alarmed shade of orange. "For one cadet." "For one human," Webb corrected gently. "The distinction is important, Captain. In our culture, the value of an individual isn't measured by their rank or position. It's absolute." Sarah Chen spoke for the first time since the gathering began, her voice carrying clearly in the vast chamber. "I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about how humans approach military service." She stood slowly, her movements careful but confident. The bandage on her cheek caught the light, a visible reminder of how this crisis had begun. Most species seem to view military strength as a way to project power, to intimidate enemies, or to claim resources. You build fleets to conquer, armies to control, weapons to destroy. Her eyes moved around the table, meeting the gaze of each representative. Humans build military forces for one reason only: to protect what we love. Chancellor Vex Prime leaned forward, her cybernetic implants whirring as they processed emotional stress. But the scale of your response? Over 1,000 ships for a minor training incident? It's completely disproportionate. Admiral Webb's smile was patient but firm. Chancellor, let me share something that might help you understand. When Sarah was 7 years old, she fell off a playground structure and broke her arm. Within minutes, 17 neighbors had arrived to help. Doctors, teachers, parents, even strangers who just heard a child crying. He gestured to the viewing ports where the dark shapes of human vessels were visible against the stars. This isn't disproportionate, Chancellor. This is how humans respond when one of our children is hurt. The only difference is that our neighborhood is now 300 light-years across. Shock Trooper Corax Brutal, who had remained standing at attention since the conference began, finally spoke. Admiral Webb, I made an error in judgment. The cadet showed disrespect, and I responded according to hegemony protocols. I did not know— That's the problem right there, Sarah interrupted, her voice sharp enough to cut through the trooper's artificial modulation. You didn't know. None of you know. She began walking around the table, her movement causing several alien officers to unconsciously shift away. Despite her small stature and obvious youth, there was something about her presence that suggested hidden depths. You've classified humans as a Type 7 civilization based on our apparent technological development. You've assessed our military capability as minimal threat potential. You've cataloged our homeworld as agricultural with limited industrial capacity. She paused behind Commander Zephyr 9's chair. Every single one of those assessments is wrong. But our sensor readings, our intelligence reports, Zephyr 9 began. Show you exactly what we wanted you to see, Sarah finished. Do you know what humans call it when someone assumes our capabilities based on surface appearance? We call it fatal mistake number 1. Admiral Webb activated a holographic display that materialized above the conference table. It showed a 3-dimensional map of local galactic space, with tiny indicators marking various star systems. For the last 2 centuries, humanity has been expanding through the galaxy using a very simple strategy. We make friends first, then we build infrastructure to protect those friends. The display zoomed in on various systems, showing installations that the assembled aliens had never detected. Space stations, manufacturing facilities, defensive platforms, and what appeared to be shipyards capable of constructing vessels on a massive scale. Every species we've encountered has been evaluated not as potential conquests or threats, but as potential family members. We study your cultures, learn your needs, and quietly position ourselves to help when help is needed. Captain Molth stared at the display in growing horror. Those facilities, some of them are in our home systems. We never detected them. Because you weren't looking for them, Sarah said simply. You were looking for military threats, invasion fleets, or resource exploitation. You weren't looking for neighbors who wanted to help build hospitals and schools. She touched a control, and the display shifted to show the economic data from dozens of worlds. Agricultural yields that had mysteriously increased over the past century. Medical technologies that had appeared just when they were needed most. Manufacturing techniques that had revolutionized entire industries. Every innovation you attributed to your own scientific progress, every breakthrough that seemed to come at just the right moment, every time your civilizations took an unexpected leap forward, we were there, quietly sharing what we knew. The implications were staggering. The assembled officers were realizing that human influence had been shaping galactic development for generations, all while maintaining the appearance of a primitive, newly contacted species. Chancellor Vex Prime's voice was barely above a whisper. Why? Why help species that you could have conquered? Why hide your true capabilities? Admiral Webb's expression became almost paternal. Because conquest creates enemies, Chancellor. And enemies eventually become wars. Wars destroy the things we're trying to protect. He gestured to Sarah, who was now standing beside the holographic display. My daughter will live for perhaps 100 years. In that time, she could see the rise and fall of entire civilizations, watch as species make the same mistakes over and over again. But if we can help create a galaxy where different peoples work together, where conflicts are resolved through understanding rather than violence, she might see something better, Sarah finished. Something worth building instead of something worth destroying. The display shifted once more, showing real-time data from the human fleet surrounding the Academy. But instead of weapon signatures and tactical information, it showed medical bays, manufacturing facilities, educational resources, and recreational areas. Every human vessel is designed as a mobile city, Sarah explained. Yes, we have weapons. You'd be amazed what humans can do when we put our minds to it. But our primary mission is always construction, not destruction. She looked directly at Shock Trooper Corax Brutal. When you struck me, you didn't just assault a coalition cadet. You threatened a building project that's been 2 centuries in the making. Corax's voice was subdued, his earlier aggression completely gone. What kind of building project? Sarah's smile was radiant, transforming her entire appearance from stern military officer to enthusiastic young woman. We're building a galaxy where a hegemony shock trooper and a human cadet can stand in the same room and see each other as family instead of threats. Admiral Webb stepped forward, his demeanor becoming more formal. Which brings us to the resolution of this incident. Shock Trooper Corax Brutal, you have a choice to make. The massive alien straightened to his full imposing height. Sir, you can face disciplinary action under coalition protocols for striking a cadet, which will likely result in your removal from service and disgrace to your unit. Corax's shoulders sagged slightly. Such an outcome would mark him as a failure among his people, a warrior who had brought shame upon the hegemony's military tradition. Or, Webb continued, you can accept assignment to our cultural exchange program. Every alien in the room turned to stare at the human admiral. Sarah was grinning openly now, clearly delighted by whatever her father had planned. What kind of assignment? Corax asked carefully. 3 months aboard a human vessel, learning how we do things, not as a prisoner or a punishment detail, but as a student. You'll work alongside human crews, participate in our training programs, and help us understand how to better integrate hegemony personnel into coalition operations. The offer was unprecedented. Humans were essentially inviting a potential enemy to observe their most closely guarded secrets, to learn the truth about their capabilities and methods. Why would you offer that? Chancellor Vex Prime asked. Why risk sharing your knowledge with someone who attacked one of your people? Sarah answered before her father could speak. Because he made a mistake based on ignorance, not malice, and because the best way to prevent future mistakes is education. She walked over to stand directly in front of Corax, her small frame dwarfed by his massive bulk. Besides, I think Shock Trooper Corax Brutal is going to discover something important during his assignment. What's that? Corax asked. Sarah's grin became positively mischievous. That humans make excellent friends, but terrible enemies, and right now you get to choose which one you want us to be. The conference room fell silent as the weight of that choice settled over everyone present. Outside the viewing ports, the human fleet maintained its patient vigil, 1,000 ships waiting for the answer that would determine how this story would end. Admiral Webb checked his chronometer with casual precision. Take your time deciding, Shock Trooper. We'll be here for as long as you need. The message was clear. Humanity had all the time in the galaxy, all the patience in the universe, and all the resources necessary to ensure that their children could build the future they deserved. The only question was whether the rest of the galaxy wanted to help build it with them. As Sarah Chen stood in that conference room, her cheek still bearing the mark of alien violence but her eyes bright with hope for tomorrow. She represented something that no intelligence agency had ever successfully catalogued: the human capacity to transform enemies into family, one conversation at a time. The galaxy would never be the same,